Democrats facing accusations they are disenfranchising voters. I believe this always been the case, especially black people in particular. What have the Democrats have ever done for the black community? But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm put out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon page where I talk about things I can't talk about here. Also has a link to my merch store where I have Let's Go Brandon t-shirts, I Will Not Comply t-shirts, and all different types of t-shirts. Check that out. And also have a link to my mental health coaching and consultation page where you can schedule a session if you're going through any type of mental health issues or anything of that sort. I can help you get through that by teaching you coping skills and all types of stuff that'll help you feel better. So let's talk about this news here. It's it actually is the Democrat Party that's disenfranchising voters, despite the members' multiple claim that GOP supported election laws are suppressing votes, according to an analysis by a GOP activist who brought evidence to his argument. Quote, even by their own lackluster standards, Democrats are disenfranchising voters across the political spectrum, explained Paris Denard, the director of Black Media Affairs for the Republican National Committee, in a commentary at Real Clear Politics. He explained it was, quote, serious election integrity issues of 2020 that prompted the GOP to pursue changes that would ensure those free, fair, and transparent elections. But Joe Biden and his party predictably have done everything under the sun to smear these efforts, even calling those everyday Americans who oppose those efforts as racist. It's crazy. Like, because we want voter integrity, because we want to make sure every vote count, is considered racist, which makes no sense. The results, he said, side with the GOP perspective. Quote, Georgia and Texas are perfect examples. Almost a year ago, after the passage of SB 202, a highly popular Republican-led election integrity law which expanded early voting, poll watching, and voter ID requirements, Democrats pulled out all the stops and started lying, like they always do. They said the laws was racist, would suppress voter turnout, and even backed a boycott meant to hurt small businesses, many of them black-owned. Essentially, they shamefully tried to stir up chaos along racial lines. But on election day, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution depicted a different scene entirely, writing that voters saw short lines, few problems, and no obstacles at the polls, the GOPer explained. I've never had any issues voting. No one ever stopped me from voting. So I don't get it. As long as you're a rightful citizen, it's not hard to register to vote. It's not hard to go to a poll and vote. But further proof comes from Texas, he said. Quote, in the first wave of major elections since its popular election integrity law, Senate Bill 1 was enacted, containing a number of similar provisions to the Georgia bill. The state saw the highest voter turnout ever. In fact, turnout increased from 2.56 million voters in 2018 to over 2.93 million in 2020. The results do two things. It disproved Democrats' claim that GOP election integrity plans suppress voters and reveal just how far left the Democrat rhetoric has deviated from the fact. For example, Democrats have claimed those pursuing election integrity plans are racist. Before the Georgia bill was passed, 75% of Americans, including 69% of black voters and 60% of Democrats, supported voter ID. And then I talked about this before. But regardless, Democrats wore themselves ragged, pushing a broader claim that Republicans were enacting voter suppression, even going so far as to try to eviscerate the Senate filibuster to push through their radical federal election takeover agenda. But support for voter ID laws only rose up at least 13 percentage points among black Americans. Additionally, voter turnout in Atlanta, ones with predominantly black communities, shot up 17% in the city's municipal elections from 2018 to 2020. The truth is, Republican efforts to fortify election integrity have only empowered the black community, he wrote. He also pointed out the fight is in the courts, including one dispute in Harris County, Texas, where Democrats' mismanagement caused polling locations to fail to open properly and for 10,000 mail-in ballots to not be counted. This is just crazy. But most people already understand that, we want voter integrity. We want to believe that our votes count. We want these checks and balances. What's wrong with having to ID someone? Most people don't think there's anything wrong with being able to having to ID someone to make sure you say who you say you are, because you need voter. You need an ID for everything. You can't write a check without ID. You can't go to get money out your bank account. Can't use your bank without ID. So I mean, most places you need an ID for. So it's really no big deal. And then they try to say, well, people can't afford IDs. Well, most states, I think every state, 50 states, every state, if you can't afford an ID, you can apply to get one for free, and the state gives you the ID for free. So it's no excuse to not have the ID requirement. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out democrapublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace. Oh,